I thought we'd get more response from this morning's letter, but I think everybody's got AB fatigue. That was.
I got to point out, Harry, you said tell that to American Apparel, which is hilarious because it's American Eagle. So it was so memorable that you got the name wrong.
It was one of those things where I literally woke up at 5 this morning, and I'm not even kidding. And I was like,
hilarious.
Oh my God, I don't think it's American Apparel. That sounds wrong.
They've had their fair share of challenges, too.
That's true.
Yeah.
It could go either way, actually. It works both ways, Jen.
But I would point out that I don't think they're actually selling any more jeans. They got a bump in the stock, but they're not selling any more denim. Nobody, no.
We'll see.
Harry's going to go buy a shit ton of American Eagle stuff.
So the article was supposed to be about something completely different. I was going to really go through kind of the anchor wholesaler and the DOJ report and all this other stuff. And then I kind of just started writing and just went on this rampage. And then I was like, well, it's long enough. I'll do the other later.
Part 1. I saw a couple of high fives in your inbox for sure.
Yeah. I like the line of old beer is a hammer in search of a nail.
Yeah.
That was good.
Well, thanks. I stole that from somebody.
Okay, I was going to ask if that was you or...
No, I don't want to say who it was because it's a source. But
what's going on, guys?
Hey, Clem. That's a new background.
Oh, yeah. I was really taken by this one. We had a feature in local Philadelphia magazine, and I thought it was AI, but they literally got an artist to glue all these cans together.
Oh, wow.
That's sweet.
It's great. It's like in the shape of a wave.
The wave, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's cool. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a visual podcast. I know most of you watch it on Spotify. I'm only going to say it one more time, but we are also on YouTube, youtube.com/BeerNet Studios, I believe it is. But just type in BeerNet Radio, you'll find it. But we love all our listeners as well. So, Clem, we've got Jordan Driggers and it says Harry
some
Shoemaker.
Other chick.
No, and Jen Litzkirk, our beer editors, and I'm Harry. And thanks for coming on the pod. And we'll let Jen give you the real introduction. But always appreciate you having you back. You're a regular.
That's right. So I'd like to give the official BeerNet Radio welcome to Clement Pappas, co-founder of Stateside Brands, maker, of course, of the leading vodka iced tea RTD Surfside. It's becoming a dog race in the segment, but at this point of the year, Surfside has done a bit over 7.25 million cases, putting them on track to do about 11 million plus cases in 2025. And we're going to bug Clem all about summer, the back half, and the future. So welcome.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course, as always.
Harry, I didn't get the this is the podcast where all my dreams come true.
True.
What happened?
I didn't say it because I feel like your dreams already have come true. and like I said, you've been on the podcast before, and we kind of want to save our dreaming coming true power for newer people, if you don't mind.
People who need them. People who need it. Yeah.
How about
we'll pay it forward.
How about where all your dreams are sustained?
Okay, I'll take that. I will take that.
So how did you have a good Labor Day? Did you get to relax at all, or?
I did, yeah. I was down at my, happy place in the Jersey Shore, nice. Which I think you're familiar with. So yeah, had the kids, had some fun, watched some college football, went out to some dinners, had a few drinks.
Nice.
No complaints, just how I like it.
You have a beautiful family. I actually creep on you. I don't creep. It just comes up on my Instagram. It's not like I'm looking. Okay.
Right.
I turn away every time.
How do I always come off as creepy, even with the male guest?
You said the word creepy.
Yeah.
I know. I could tell what you were. I could see your eyes, Jordan.
Judging.
Yeah. Well, how about summer sales? So you guys are in the enviable position of having had a great summer, which is, more than I can say for a lot of your competition. So what drove sales this summer?
Yeah, I think, the usual, obviously it's peak season for us, as it is for, most of the industry. And so, the normal seasonality was there. I think for us, we started really lapping some big comps. As we hit the summer. So some of the percentages, it's kind of law of large numbers are starting to come down. June, throughout the East and the whole Midwest, I know everybody's talked about this, but the weather was not ideal. to say the least. I think in my region we had rain like 7 out of 8 weekends, May and June. So June was a little dampened, but we were still, I think, 99.9% up in June. So obviously not a failure, but felt like we missed some of the traffic we would have normally got. And then July was great, great weather month. Still putting the finishing touches on August, but August looks probably closer to June than July. But overall, big success. I think the other thing for us too, obviously, and I know you have some other questions, we'll probably get into it, but we starting out as a kind of startup company and really building the brand organically kind of in our region in Philly, and then expanding to the Northeast, and then sort of as you get farther away from the epicenter, right? We have markets that are a lot less developed. And so, we're really starting to see some of those pop off and really start to go. So that's been exciting as well. And we think, we've seen that really every year since we've had Surfside out there. But I think that's going to, help carry us into the fall in some of these markets where, the brand was really low awareness going into this time last year. But this year we're going to carry some of that momentum into the fall and into football season and the holidays and all those good occasions that we love.
When you talk about growth, sorry, Jen, I'll just want to get this in. Like how much growth do you attribute to distribution gains versus velocity?
Yeah, so we're up when you kind of net the whole year out, we're up about 150%. If you look at our core markets, there's a kind of an interesting asterisk there because Pennsylvania had a law change. So Pennsylvania is up about 120%. New Jersey and Delaware, which are also extremely saturated markets for us, are more like 15 to 20%. So if that kind of gives you a gauge, I don't have all the distribution at my fingertips, but obviously, as you get into the Midwest and West, there's a lot more kind of wide open space where those numbers look like some of them are thousands of percents, right? Because they're coming off such a small base. But that kind of probably gives you a read where we're really mature. We're growing 15 or 20% right now. So again, that's on a big base. So it's a nice juice in volume. But the percentage growth is definitely coming from, the more outlying markets.
Yeah, that's solid. 15% on your most mature markets. That's got to be gratifying because you don't want to see that go down, level off too soon. It's going to at some point, right? But it's not too soon.
Right?
Yeah, it will.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about your mix because that kind of dovetails with where you're strong regionally and not. Your mix is a little different than I think some people realize because like 40% goes through the liquor channel, right? And then on premise is another like 30%. And then scans or like multi-outlet and convenience are only like 19%, and the rest is control states. So which of those buckets are accelerating and which are slowing down? And then I have a follow-up to that too.
Yeah, and I think it kind of goes back to the same story, right? So, being kind of a core, Northeast, where we're most saturated, that I think is a big part of why it skews that way. I mean, we have like a great partnership with Total Wine, so they're great for us all over the country. They're always amongst, our highest volume and highest velocity accounts. But, obviously when you're in a market where chain, grocery and convenience is available, they just have a much lower share. And so, what we're seeing is we're growing faster in the chain, in the the bulk data, because that's just, those territories, California and Illinois and Michigan and Arizona, those are all territories that are still maybe in sort of year 1 or 2 of brand development. I think, we launched pretty much all 50 states, or we were in all 50 states by the end of last year. But a lot of those were really, I'd call them soft launches for lack of a better term. We did not enter the markets at scale. We signed distributor partners, but we didn't have the full complement of chains that we needed to have. We didn't necessarily have the marketing. We didn't have the sales force. And so, this year was the year that we really, when you look at a market like California or Texas or Illinois, I mean, we went after it, much more at scale this year. And so that's where we're seeing the highest growth. And most of those markets are chain. Obviously, the notable exception of Texas, is all liquor store for our product. But, pretty much everywhere else that's major, that bulk channel is big for us.
Yeah. And then I'm curious, I mean, your mix, and you said part of it is where you started where you started, right? Like being in
Right.
Philly, you were in a certain area for a particular reason, but your biggest competitors, would you say, so far as you know, and I'm sure you know, how does their mix differ from your mix?
Yeah, I think it's kind of the inverse, right? And so I think a lot of our major competitors, right, and we can name them, right? There's Gallo, there's Boston Beer, ABI's thrown their hat in the ring. And so, those guys are really strong in chain. They have long
Mm.
historic relationships, and I think they were, able to get in chain, quicker than we were as an outsider. And so I think they're a little ahead of us in chain, and I think they're behind us as it relates, certainly to our core markets and in liquor. And so again, I don't have their exact data, but that would be my strong instinct is that it's a little bit of the inverse.
Mhm. Mhm.
Picking up on chains, and you mentioned Texas, as beer distributors take on more RTD spirits and full strength spirits too, and suppliers lean further into spirit RTDs, have you sensed any tides turning in regards to more favorable legislation for spirit RTDs in states as it kind of applies to availability and excise tax?
Yeah, not a lot on the excise tax side. That's one off here and there. I think there's some things floating around New Mexico and a couple places like that. But yeah, on the access side, I do start to sense a shift with the beer wholesalers because I think rightfully they're starting to see that they're winning with RTDs. And obviously there's been some notable movement in that middle tier and with different brands over the last year or two. And so I think they're starting to see that this is a space they can win in. And they do. I mean, look, we sort of realized this, by trial and error, but luckily we learned pretty quickly. But we realized, 3 years ago that beer route to market was going to be the best for us, and it was going to be harder to sign up 200 distributors instead of Southern Glazers plus a couple independents. So it was a lot harder. I think early on in this industry, it was just Gallo had set the example through the Wine and Spirits Network, and it just seemed a lot easier to sign up a major national guy than to go try to put together all these networks. But I think as things are playing out now, it's becoming clearer that the beer wholesalers are going to win in this category. And I think it's interesting, right? Because now you see Southern looks like they've realized that too. And now that spirits are a little softer, maybe they realize they need to win in RTDs. And so, you see this activity with the AB network. So, long-winded answer, but I do think in general, and every state's got its own set of, interest groups and different, players that come to the table. But I do sense, yes, that I think beer wholesalers are realizing this is a growth category and they need it. And for it to really grow, they're going to need that market access.
Yeah. And for perspective, I guess, on Run Room, looking at the two largest drinking states, California and Texas, how do your sales kind of like stack up between the two, considering California allows spirit RTD sales in grocery and Texas doesn't?
Yeah, California is bigger. I mean, the other thing that is a little more complicated about Texas is the Class B route to market for the on-premise, which sort
Mhm.
of adds a fourth tier. And there's some really good operators down there. I mean, Specs is great. Total Wine's thrown their hat into it. Siegel. So there's some good operators, but it's just more complex from the supplier perspective, to manage through those four tiers. So yeah, I mean, we see California, as a significantly bigger potential market at this point. I would say for us, we're both kind of in year sort of 1A in those markets. So we think there's a lot of runway, and we, aren't anywhere near where we could be. But certainly California seems like a much bigger size of the prize. And even there's a ton of beer only licenses in California. Like if you look at 7-Eleven, I think don't quote me, but something like 1,700 7-Elevens, and only like 150 of them have a full spirits license. So a beer only license is still a big thing, and also on the on premise in California. So there's some opportunity there, and I think some of them are just going to buy the spirits license, but there may be some legislative opportunities to make some exceptions for low proof RTDs.
Cool. I want to go back to something you said a second ago about your wholesalers and how, you're happy with what you built with this beer network. And of course, there's a lot of consolidation going on, and you mentioned Southern Glazers. So does that make you nervous because you built this network that you really like, and all of a sudden it could change?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a really interesting time. I think more so right now on the AB side, which I guess is new. Seems like I'm in the
A week or
mostly
two,
course side for a while,
couple
but
weeks.
yeah. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely some things going on out there that, could break, in a way that would, put us in you know, um, a less desirable spot. We do, feel really good about our network and who we're working with. So, you hope that the people that you work with that are great partners are the ones that wind up becoming the acquirers, and then you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
But some of that stuff's beyond our control, and we'll take it as it comes and deal with it kind of case by case.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Okay, so we're talking about hot topics, consolidation, right? Let's talk about marketing. And you guys just made a big announcement that Xfinity Live in Philly is now going to become Stateside Live. So can you tell us more about kind of the thinking behind that marketing investment?
Yeah, it's if you're not familiar with Philly and Philly sports, for everybody knows about Philly sports and Philly sports fans, right? And our
I do.
reputation precedes us. Um, but we have this interesting kind of, I think, almost unique situation in this country where we have all four sports are played within like walking distance, like 3 blocks of each other. We call it the Sports Complex in South Philly. And so there's this big mega bar. It's under the Live name. Many people will probably be familiar with those. There's the big one in Texas Live, and there's Battery Live in Atlanta, and it's a group that we've done a lot of partnerships with over the year. Cordish is the name of the company that owns it, and it's just like a really like huge landmark. And we think this partnership with them. I mean, we've obviously focused on sports marketing, and so for us in Philly. I mean, it's just a land, like everybody knows. I mean, meet me at Xfinity. Now it's going to be meet
Yeah.
me at Stateside, right? So we feel like that's going to drive us to something like 100% awareness in Philadelphia on the Stateside name. And we thought about obviously Surfside, and there were some things there, but Surfside didn't quite feel right, like in South Philly. Maybe in South Beach it feels right, right? But it didn't really feel right. Philly feels like Stateside. And we are getting ready, at least in some test markets. Philly obviously will be one of them, to really kind of refresh and put a bigger push behind Stateside Vodka and Stateside Vodka Soda. So they're still going to be selling lots of Surfside there. The Surfside will be flowing, but we just thought it was a great unique opportunity to really own that space. It's obviously a naming rights deal, and so it's a long-term deal, and like I said, it's kind of a landmark place in the city. So we just feel like that really was a unique opportunity. These don't come around every year, right? It's been Xfinity Live for 20 years. So some people are resistant to change, but we think ultimately people will be happy with Stateside, but in terms of the name. But yeah, it's thrilling for us, right? As a couple guys from Philly that love Philly sports, to have that is just like, pinch me. It's killer.
You just drive by it a whole bunch.
Oh yeah, back and forth.
Look. Well, no, I'm curious. I was going to ask you anyway about the full strength vodka and the vodka sodas. So it sounds like you guys do have a push for those brands. Are there particular markets where you guys are doing that, and what exactly does that entail?
Yeah, we're taking a harder look at our pricing. We're going to do a very minor, probably label refresh on the vodka. When we first came out with this vodka 10 years ago, it was before Tito's had achieved, full world dominance over the category. They were doing well, but I mean, they've kind of become like the Kleenex of the category. I mean, nobody even says vodka anymore. They just say Tito's. And so, we were kind of targeting kind of Kettle One, Grey Goose pricing. So I think we're gonna reevaluate that and try to be a bit more competitive, because Tito's has just kind of pulled the whole category, and they pulled, I think, consumers up from lower price points and consumers down from higher price points. But we think we need to be more competitive with that, and we've been a little bit uncompetitive. And yeah, certainly Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, Florida, pieces of Florida are going to be a big push for us, as well as Maryland and Delaware. So those are kind of the ones. And well, I should mention South Carolina as well.
Okay. Interesting.
I always would say that Tito's is the Yingling of the vodka business, because people perceive it as a super premium, but it's priced at Budweiser pricing. That was the key to Tito's, I think, success. Although you're right, he brought a lot of margin out of Grey Goose and Kettle.
Oh yeah. Yeah. When I started, Grey Goose and Kettle were like $28-$30 a fifth. And, everybody's $19.99 now.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what's the biggest push for the back half, Clem?
Really, what's left of the year is really just execution for us. Obviously, we're getting a lot of, continued chain wins, which is great. That was a real uphill battle for us when we were talking maybe a year or so ago. Just again, being a new supplier without existing, chain relationships. So, still have a few major gaps to fill, but, a lot of the big ones, Safeway and Albertsons in California in particular, we're going to get a lot in the fall there. Walmart, we just got a bunch of fall tweaks, so that was big. Kroger, we're getting a bunch of increased distribution, so there'll be some nice distribution gains, even coming in the fall tweaks. And then, from a marketing perspective, college, we put a big push into the college market. So, I mentioned to you in an email, but Florida State, Penn State, Alabama, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Oregon, Texas Tech, TCU, Arizona. So we've done a bunch.
Those are all party schools.
Yeah.
No Longhorns?
Yeah, where's Ole Miss?
Yeah, that's in there. I got that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy. We got signs with Hotty toddy on them. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see, and I'll tell you, I'll admit it, I really never thought that we would do as well as we do in the college towns, but I grew up in the day when whatever was cheapest, Milwaukee's best. We just bought whatever was on sale, and I don't know whether it's daddy's credit card or, how these things are getting paid for, but these kids buy it. And
it's 100% dad's credit card.
Yeah.
I know because I have young sons.
You have one of
Well, and pricing is an issue. We've noticed that Sun Cruiser's been discounting and offering deals pretty heavily in certain markets. Is that something that you're going to follow, or maybe you don't have to say you're a follow, but how do you view pricing in that regard?
Yeah, I think we have a premium offering, and we're going to play the game and do $2 TPRs, $3 TPRs, and I think that's just kind of par for the course if you want to get display activity and ad activity. But we're not going to do $8 deals, or we just don't think that's good for brand equity. And frankly, we're investing plenty in marketing, but we would much rather focus on the pull rather than kind of throwing it into the trade and just kind of giving the product away. So that's really been our philosophy. And hey, look, if we notice we're hemorrhaging share, maybe we're going to need to respond, but that's not a place where we want to be. We think we're in a position where the consumer is happy to pay it. The retailer's making margin, the distributor's making margin, and the last thing we want to do is kind of spoil the formula here that's working for everyone.
So it sounds like you're saying that the supplier's job is to provide good marketing, and it's the distributor's job to get it on the shelf.
Look at that.
I don't know if you read Beer Business Daily this morning, but I went on quite a rant. A rant.
I read it every morning, Harry. First thing I do.
Okay, good. And I also wanted to ask you about, because the last time we spoke, I think that day the TTB came out and did a new standard of fill for spirit-based products, that as far as being in a resealable container. and you had just ordered like a bunch of cans with the resealable thing, and you got to work through that. So is that a package that that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I think it's a huge opportunity, and I think it was a big barrier for RTDs. Obviously, there's a lot of market access barriers in a lot of states where those large format packages are basically venues and convenience are the two biggest channels by far. And so you have a lot of states where we still can't be in convenience, but putting that to the side, the cost structure of that, the increased excise tax for being in a 24-ounce can versus where we're going, which is a 19.2, which will be hitting the market here in the next couple of weeks as we kind of phase out of the 24 resealable and into the standard 19.2. So again, all the states have various tax regimes, but you're gonna be seeing a lot more Surfside at $3.99, where now it's $4.99. Some places it's $5.99, and there's just too big of a gap between us and the FMB competitors that are out there. And so we're really excited about it. I think, was sort of saying as I started this answer, when you look at convenience, I mean, even High Noon, as popular as it is, has never really cracked the code on it. And I think it's a big part of why. It's just, having it's hard to have a $2 price gap on the shelf when you're talking about a $3, $4, $5 item.
Right. And it doesn't seem like to me that the singles consumer is concerned about whether there's real spirits in it or if it's malt based.
Yeah.
As long as it tastes good and has a kick. And yeah.
We're excited about it to get it out on the shelf and, be able to support the right price points and drive more trial. And hey, look, I agree with you. I think that consumers may be less less interested in whether it's malt or whether it's this or that. They want it to taste good. They want it to potentially have a kick. But again, you look at a brand like Twisted Tea. At one point, I read where almost half their volume is sold in that format. And so I think that's we're always looking at this data, and it's like, and you guys have written about it. Is Surfside and Sun Cruiser interacting with Twisted Tea, or is it not? And it's sort of an open question. I mean, when we run our data from the NIQ panels and stuff, we don't see a huge interaction, but we see some. And
with Twisted,
yeah,
okay,
yeah, we see much more with High Noon.
Okay,
we see a lot with Mick Ultra.
Really,
but
that's interesting.
Yeah, but we see Twisted Tea's on the list. Don't get me wrong, but it's it's not sort of first, second, or third. White Claw's another one that we see a lot of interaction with. So it'll be interesting to see if we can really get to the shelf with the right package and the right product and the right price point, what that does and how much trial we can drive and how much we can drive an increase in the size of the prize.
Yeah, I mean, kind of just picking up from there, and we were talking about colleges, and then the big key summer holidays. Loading up for a party, it always has seemed like beer was the anchor, and then spirits RTDs might be an add-on, and then other stuff. Does it seem like spirits RTDs might start to become the anchor, or are you seeing that? And then beer's kind of the one that they get to appease maybe some other people, but that's the main entree for, a party, the crowd pleaser, I guess.
Yeah, and certainly, look, anecdotally, I see it a lot, and we, see people posting it on social media, and I see it in my own personal life. But still, to put it in perspective, I mean, the biggest spirits-based RTD brand is High Noon. They're going to do what, 25, 30 million cases, and Modelo is going to do what, 250 million plus or minus. So it's still, beer is still the king of volume, no question. But I do think, obviously the trends and the data would support this is, this is a, part of the category that's growing and, pretty much almost everything else. I mean, especially if you take non-alc and hemp and you don't consider that part of it. I mean, there's very little that's growing right now outside of spirits RTDs.
Is the 5-year plan to catch High Noon? The cool 30 mil
Yeah,
cases?
I mean, hopefully it's more like a 2 or 3 year plan.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the goal.
With all the
and we have,
Live.
we have caught them in a bunch of states here. Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, New York. So we certainly think it's possible. We just have to execute.
Yeah, interesting.
And again, they're not necessarily our target. It's not like we have a target on High Noon's back, but they are just the brand that has,
right.
They've led the way, they've scaled. And so it's kind of like, hey, this is the model for what the top of the category looks like.
What about the Lucky One? Is that giving you guys a more direct run for your money than just regular High Noon? I feel like I haven't heard too much about it lately. I'm, curious.
Yeah, and I think Gallo's just an excellent company that does a really good job of getting their product out there, and they had huge displays everywhere I went all summer. I think the question now becomes the question that you have with every brand after the first year. It's like, okay, they got it out there, people are going to try it. What we don't know yet is how's it going to cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think they did an excellent job of getting it out there and driving trial, and it was ubiquitous.
Yeah.
You're right. I try to go to Total Wine like once a month just to browse the aisles, and I saw that they had just an enormous display, and it's
I don't
funny
know how they do it.
I like forgot about Lucky Dog. Like I'm in the industry, and I kind of forgot or Lucky One, whatever it's called. Yeah, they had a huge dog, inflatable dog. It was like a big spectacle.
There's the John Daly one, Good Boy, right? And I'm terrible too.
Uh-huh.
It's like I'm exactly in my industry, and I get them mixed up. I'm like Lucky Dog, good one,
Good boy,
Lucky boy.
Yeah.
Oh,
those guys are doing well too. I mean, they're expanding regionally, but I am seeing where the John Daly one is gaining some traction. It's interesting.
Well, when you have a movie like Happy Gilmore 2, it's not quite fair, right? I guess I have to ask, being that there are so many players directly in your space, are you guys looking at any other innovation or brand lines or anything?
Yeah, we're constantly looking at that. I think the last few years, what we've tried to undertake has been pretty ambitious. So we've been really like, okay, let's just focus on Surfside, right? And frankly, it was just going to be hard to accomplish just that. And so, we really didn't feel like we had the bandwidth to start playing with a lot of different things. We really kind of had to execute on that. But we're getting to a point now where we have enough scale and enough bandwidth to start thinking about it. So nothing I can announce today. We will have a few line extensions on Surfside. We'll have an LTO. That'll be coming out, and I promise I'll call you first as soon as we're ready to put that out there. But we have an LTO that we're going to look at, and then potentially another one more variety pack that we're going to look at putting out. But then as far as that, true new to world innovation and not just line extensions off of Surfside, yes, there are a number of things that we're looking at right now, and I think there probably will be a launch of one of them, at least locally, as soon as next year. And that's something, like I said, when we're ready to unveil that, you guys will certainly be the first to know.
At our summit, which you're speaking at.
Yeah, maybe that's good.
That's right. We do have you confirmed to speak at our Beer, Wine, and Spirits Summit, ladies and gentlemen, in January 2026 at the Hotel del Coronado. And I don't know if you guys saw this. Last week, the Wall Street Journal did a big layout story on the Hotel Del, how they finally renovated it, on our last year even. And so we're going to have it's like, thanks guys. They've been working on it for the 20 years that we've had it there. There's been nothing but hammering and jackhammering and painting, and now it's done. So if you want to catch the Del in all its magical new freshly painted glory, be sure and check beernet.com for tickets, because Clem's going to be there and I'm going to be there. Everybody on this call will be there.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Is there anything else?
It was funny. I think we were joking, how most companies right now are all trying to figure out what's going on with alcohol. And I think we were joking, like, do you think Clem is worried whether the industry is in cyclical or structural, and how do you even like go into that conversation when everyone's like, what's going on with alcohol, what's going on, and you're presiding over maybe the fastest independent largest rise of a brand.
Yeah, I don't know. We're up 100%.
Yeah. What decline?
We're doubling every year. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I certainly give it a lot of thought, and certainly, you guys are spilling a lot of ink on this topic, and everybody in the industry is. I kind of go back to my gut, and I mean, I worry because maybe my gut's off here. I mean, if you ask me my favorite hobby is drinking. So
I love that you're so honest. I love it.
I mean, I love drinking with the game, with the guys, on the boat, on the beach. I mean, it's just always good. So, I still think alcohol is just, sort of the best sort of legal, regulated, recreational, mood altering substance that's out there. And, there's a lot of noise with, all the factors that everybody's familiar with, whether it's Ozempic or THC or all those things. But I also still think we're in a pretty significant COVID hangover. I think people overdid it. People's health went sideways. I think there's a lot of people that are, flirting with, the kind of cutting back on drinking. But I do think most of it is cyclical. And, I think it's so baked into Western society and so ingrained in our culture going back so many thousands of years. And look, maybe things need to change. And, I know wine is in a particularly tough place. It seems, what I read about wine, they maybe haven't made themselves accessible enough to younger consumers. So, there's challenges in the industry that maybe the industry really needs to tackle. I know how Harry feels about the marketing. So there are pieces of it that way, but, I think ultimately we'll figure it out and as an industry, and we'll make a comeback. Because I think, alcohol is great. I mean, think about all the great times in your life, and, weddings and parties, and, Eagles winning the Super Bowl last year. I mean, there were drinks involved, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the great ways to celebrate and, blow off steam. And I don't see marijuana or any of these other things becoming a substitute for that.
It's not social. It's not celebratory the way that booze is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. As a group, Americans, they overdid it. They're resetting a little bit. And by the way, this health and wellness narrative, from the WHO that we all know is cherry picked and kind of a bullshit report, that will while it's all over the New York Times today, at some point people will start debunking it. And then that will be the news cycle. And I predict it will be about, if it's not this Christmas, it'll be next Christmas. It's always the holidays. That's all these articles come out about drinking during the holidays. And so, or New Year's. And so I think at some point, journalists will actually do their job and look into the data and find out that the data are wrong. And yes, data is plural. So that's I don't know why I'm just rant mode this week. I just came out of the holiday just blaring.
Right. Shot out of a cannon.
I am just worked up. So, talk me off a cliff, Clement.
Listen, the world's not going to end. We'll be all right.
No, we're going to be all right. Well, thank you for coming on BeerNet Radio, Clem. We look forward to seeing you at the summit early next year. And also, you know what? I take it back. I do want all the rest of your dreams to come true. The ones that haven't
thanks,
already.
Hair. Thanks, old hair.
All right, old hair. Look at old hair just giving out favors.
Just giving out wishes.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next week in the same spot here, folks, on BeerNet Radio. Take care.
Cheers.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clem.